Hello, dear friends. The French contactee Elena Danam recently revealed to the Spanish astrologer Eva Lunella that the magnetic pole shift would not be an imminent danger because it would take time to occur and it would also be very slow. But other contactees shuffle this issue as a hypothesis, and I must report on what science says about it. Opinion piece. The Earth's overturning. Magnetic pole reversal theory. No one knows why magnetism is changing. Is a change in the Earth's magnetic field coming? Could civilization collapse because of a pole shift? Magnetic north is shifting from Canada to Siberia. It would be a slow and gradual process, not sudden as claimed. Taliban go door to door looking for Christians. Afghans flee to the mountains in search of safe haven. Armed resistance against Taliban in Panshir Valley. 2,000 people evacuated from Afghanistan in last 24 hours. Taliban prevented from leaving the country through Kabul airport. Australians have lost a right to protest against their government. US imposes sanctions on 3 Cuban officials over repression. Let's start. Everyone knows that the magnetic pole north of the Earth, to which the compass points, has been shifting from Canada towards Siberia for years, forcing constant adjustments to the compasses of aircraft, ships and satellites. This fact has encouraged the hypothesis of change or inversion of magnetic poles, as it has happened in the Earth's past and as some prophecies have announced. But no one knows when it will occur or how fast this phenomenon, which has also been called the overturning of the Earth, will occur, and it would even be possible that the planet's axis of rotation could be straightened. The compass needle always points to the north, but in reality they do not point to the geographical north, but to the magnetic north. This is because our planet has a magnetic field that ensures the survival of life as it exists on Earth. Due to this magnetic field, our planet acts as a magnet, with its corresponding poles. Curiously, these do not coincide with the geographic north and south pole, but are displaced at a certain distance. Until now, it was thought that the magnetic North Pole was located about 1,600 kilometers from the geographic one near Canada. However, the latest measurements have revealed that it is shifting from Canada towards Siberia. Why is the magnetism changing? No one knows. This alteration brings the scientific community in check, which is not able to find a unanimous reasoning. It is believed that the cause could be due to changes in the interior of the Earth's core. Geomagnetic reversal. A geomagnetic reversal is a change in the magnetic field of a planet, such as the positions of the magnetic north and magnetic south are interchanged. The Earth's magnetic field has alternated between periods of normal polarity, in which the direction of the field was the same as the current one, and reverse polarity, in which it was the opposite. There have been 183 reversals in the last 83 million years, on average once every 450,000 years. The last one occurred 780,000 years ago, indicating that we are of a age. According to Jaime González, scientists have long known that throughout the history of planet Earth, the magnetic poles have reversed many times. This process, whose exact causes are known, and which was believed to last thousands of years, begins with a progressive weakening of the magnetic field and culminates with the reversal of the poles. According to some estimates, magnetic reversals have occurred with a frequency of 1 to 5 events every million years. Now, a study by scientists at the University of California at Berkeley and Columbia University, along with French and Italian researchers, has concluded that the last magnetic reversal that occurred on Earth was 786,000 years ago, and did not last for thousands of years, but occurred in less than a century. This rapidity in the Earth's geomagnetic reversal has surprised those responsible for the research, published in the Geophysical Journal International, which points out that the change occurred within a human lifetime. A disaster? The reversal of the planet's magnetic poles would almost completely deprive it of protection against charged particles from the solar wind and other forms of space radiation, which would accelerate the evolution of animals and have an impact on people's lives. Geologists predict, even with Earth's current strong magnetic field, we are still susceptible to solar storms that can damage our electricity-based society. Such disasters, researchers say, accelerated the evolution of animals and plants on Earth, interfered with the migrations of birds and other animals. Today, it would cause problems with transmission lines and destroy all satellites in orbit. Scientists hope that humanity has time to prepare for the next change before it happens. Global collapse. Could magnetic pole shift collapse civilization? Russian scientists warn that the possible shift of the Earth's pole could bring about the collapse of civilization. The chairman of the Academic Council of the Siberian Department of the Russian Academy of Sciences, Nikolai Dobretsov, warns of the risks that could result from a reversal of shift of the planet's magnetic poles. However, it is impossible to predict it accurately. According to him, the pole shift could lead to a collapse of civilization. The planet's magnetic field would weaken by several dozen times, which would lead to a number of problems. Electricity would cease to be generated, the ionosphere would be destroyed, and cosmic radiation could reach the Earth's surface. Cell phones and the Internet would cease to function. Faced with these potential dangers, Siberian scientists are calling for joint efforts. According to Dobretsov, it would be necessary to develop a long-term program of measures for the protection of mankind. He also considers it necessary to strengthen the monitoring of the state of Earth's magnetic field, which can be done in Antarctica. Afghanistan. 2,000 people evacuated from Afghanistan in the last 24 hours. Some 2,000 people were evacuated from Kabul airport in the last 24 hours, among them nearly 300 Americans. A famous Afghan singer escapes from Kabul in a cargo plane. Ariana Sajid, one of Afghanistan's most famous singers, escaped Tuesday from Kabul in a US cargo plane. In quotes, "I am safe and sound, and after a couple of unforgettable nights, I have arrived in Doha, Qatar," Ariana Sajid wrote on her Instagram account. Evacuations continue in drips and drabs due to chaos at Kabul airport. 4 days after the Taliban seizure of Kabul, chaos continues outside the capital's airport, with thousands of Afghans unable to access the premises while security forces fire in the air to contain them. Many of the families arriving at the airport do so after being summoned by the embassies of the countries that are going to receive them, which summon them at 1 hour at one of the gates of the airport, but that is the end of the help they can give them. The Taliban are preventing Afghans from leaving the country through Kabul airport. U.S. Undersecretary Wendy Sherman said Wednesday that the Taliban are preventing Afghans from leaving the country through Kabul airport, which contradicts their statements and commitments. U.S. presses Taliban to leave safe corridor to Kabul airport. The U.S. is pressing the Taliban to leave a safe corridor so that Americans and their Afghan collaborators can reach Kabul airport, from where 7,000 people have been evacuated since August 14th. Pentagon spokesman John Kirby said U.S. commanders on the ground are in frequent communication with the Taliban to facilitate safe passage to the airfield. Protests spread to Kabul. The Taliban called on Afghanistan's imams to urge unity when they hold their first Friday prayers since the Islamist group took control of the country, as protests against the takeover spread to more cities Thursday, including the capital, Kabul. New Taliban loot planes, guns and night visions Googles. A month ago, Afghanistan's defense ministry posted pictures on social media of 7 new helicopters arriving in Kabul. They now belong to the Taliban. Witch hunt. Taliban hunt for Afghans who cooperated with US and NATO. Members of the Taliban movement have intensified their search for Afghans who cooperated with US and NATO forces in Afghanistan, the New York Times reported. Taliban seized secret biometric database. The Taliban have gained access to a device that could help them identify and locate Afghans who cooperated with US forces. The device contains their biometric data, such as iris scans or fingerprints. Taliban go door to door looking for Christians and look for Bible apps on phones. The Taliban have a target list of known Christians they aim to hunt down and kill. The US Embassy has disappeared, and there is no longer a safe place for believers to take refuge. All borders with neighboring countries are closed, and all flights have stopped, with the exception of private planes. People are fleeing to the mountains in search of refuge. They are completely dependent on God, who alone can and will protect them. The Taliban go from door to door, taking women and children. People must mark their house with an X if they have a girl over 12 years old, so that the Taliban can take her away. If they find a girl and the house was not marked, they will execute the whole family. If a married woman of 25 years or older is found, the Taliban will quickly kill her husband, do whatever they want to her, and then sell her into slavery. Resistance, like in the Second World War. Massoud asks Washington for weapons against the Taliban. Armed resistance against the Taliban in a region northeast of Kabul, the Panshir Valley, the Taliban have never managed to subdue this area where the Mujahideen are now regrouping their forces. This corner, protected by the Hindu-Kush mountains, was neither conquered by the Soviets nor by the Taliban. At the head of an incipient guerrilla movement is Ahmad Massoud, the son of the famous Afghan commander Ahmed Shah Massoud, the Lion of Panshir, killed in 2001 by Al-Qaeda. Massoud is demanding weapons from the US to fight Taliban power. US agreed to cede Afghanistan to Taliban almost 2 years ago. Geopolitical magazine Lime's columnist Dario Fabri said the US had reached an agreement 18 months ago with the Taliban to cede Afghanistan. That means the deal was made about 2 months into the Biden administration, but it was the Trump administration who initiated the talks. Afghanistan's fate means West now perceived as weak, says British minister. Afghanistan's fate after a 20-year US-led war means the West's resolve is now perceived as weak by major adversaries such as Russia, British Defense Secretary Bell Wallace said Thursday. Spain. The first flight from Kabul arrives in Spain with Spaniards and dozens of Afghans. The first plane with Afghan refugees in Spanish and the Spanish embassy staff lands in Madrid. The flight from Kabul arrived at the Torrejón de Ardoz air base and at 4:30 in the morning with 53 people. 5 of them are Spanish. The rest are Afghan collaborators accompanied by their families. The Spanish government is also considering bringing to Spain Afghan civil society leaders and human rights defenders whose lives could be in danger after the victory of the Taliban in their country, in addition to the Afghan collaborators who are still awaiting evacuation. The average daily price of electricity in the Spanish wholesale market will change this Friday, its third increase, with a rise of 3.3% over the level marked today, and will be at the gates of a new record high with 117.14 euros per megawatt hour. German economy on track for stronger growth in Q3. The German economy is on track for a durable, probably stronger recovery in the third quarter, driven by dynamic domestic demand after gross domestic product expanded 1.5% in the April-June quarter, the finance minister said on Friday. Spanish America. Storm Grace hits Mexico's Caribbean coast with rain. Tropical Storm Grace dumped heavy rain in Mexico's Caribbean coast on Thursday, but appeared to have avoided serious damage to local resorts as it moved through the Yucatan Peninsula toward the Gulf of Mexico, where it could strengthen again. U.S. imposes sanctions on 3 Cuban officials over a crackdown on protests. The Treasury Department said Thursday it has imposed sanctions on 3 Cuban officials it said were involved in the crackdown on protests on the island that began on July 11th. Chile doesn't exist, in quotes. Terraplanist theory that unleashed laughter and memes. The theory was published more than a year ago by a Spanish terraplanist group on social networks, but now it has gone viral in Spanish America. A Facebook group called Tierra Plana España claimed that Chile doesn't exist. The recent screenshot went viral last Friday, August 13. Chileans reacted with a lot of humor about it, and they did not wait for the cataracts of memes. Protests. Australians have lost the right to protest against their government. In quotes, warning to potential protesters, stay home or face legal action. Senior police commanders have warned anyone planning to attend an unauthorized protest planned for this weekend that they will face the full force of the law. Klaus Schwab publishes his latest dream for us, in quotes. This is what our lives could soon be like, from ghost kitchens and cloud markets to identifying human beings by their heartbeats. Finance. 17% of the gold exported by Brazil is mined illegally. Out of every 100 grams of gold sold by Brazil in the world, 17 could be contaminated by illegal mining and the violence that this activity brings with in the heart of the Amazon rainforest. A gold mining company explains why it believes Bitcoin investors will return to the precious metals. Sharp fluctuations in the cryptocurrency sector will eventually drive Bitcoin investors back to the gold, asserted the chief executive of Australian gold mining company Evolution Mining, Jake Klein. In quotes, I think volatility in the cryptocurrency space will ultimately lead to people returning to gold, he said. According to Klein, Bitcoin still has a long way to go before it can demonstrate the durability and safety that the precious metals offered investors over the past 70 years. Will Bitcoin reach $100,000? August has been a good month for cryptocurrency supporters. The Bitcoin, whose price fell below $30,000 in July, has rebounded to almost $48,000 and could continue this trend. Last month alone, its share price rose by 40% thanks to the good performance of Ethereum tokens Cardano, Binance, Ripple, and the cryptocurrency Dogecoin. Some investors are confident that the price of Bitcoin could surpass its all-time high of $64,863 this time around. If Bitcoin follows Ethereum, it would rise to $100,000. The US is dependent on China. In quotes, the US doesn't manufacture anything and is therefore dependent on China, criticizes Max. He also questions whether the economy is really in crisis because the stock markets are at a record highs, housing is a record highs, and so is the debt market. So, where is the crisis, he asks. Debt is so out of control that the only option is to stand by and watch the dollar fall, in quotes. According to Mac and Stacy's Kaiser report. According to Max, it's impossible to know when, but I think the bubble is going to burst. It's a powder keg in the form of a liquidity crisis, but I don't know which markets are going to suffer from it. At the same time, the specialists predicted that serious market crashes could emerge this fall. Currencies at risk of collapse. The external debt of most developing countries has increased by 55% to 65% on average during the crisis. The next global crisis could occur after 2023, when the US raises interest rates. In 2018, the US interest rate hike resulted in sovereign default in Argentina and Lebanon, and dealt to a severe blow to the Turkish lira. Countries that would be affected by the crisis also include former Soviet Union states with large dollar borrowings: Ukraine, Georgia, Belarus, Tajikistan, and Kyrgyzstan. Rising interest rates would also affect the currencies of Turkey and Vietnam. Curious. White population declined for first time. The new US Census data show that the white population declined for the first time in history over the past decade, with significant increases among people who identify as multiracial. Hispanic and Asian driving much of the population growth between 2010 and 2020. First, portable Gauss cannon. While all firearms are based on physical and mechanical principles that are hundreds of years old, Gauss cannons represent a new paradigm in this field. They do not use gunpowder to launch projectiles, but a succession of electromagnets which are capable of accelerating a projectile to high speed. And that's all for today. Thanks a lot, dear friends.